The following podcast contains bizarre theories, strange facts, and some out-of-this-world opinions. Listener discretion is advised, especially if you trust the government.
Conspiracy.
Welcome back, conspiracy lovers, to another episode of Conspiracy, the show where no story is too strange, no theory too far-fetched, and no one is safe from our deep dives into the unknown. I'm Ash, your host, your guide into the world of conspiracies, and occasional devil's advocate. Just a reminder, we drop new episodes every Wednesday, so make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. Just want to take another beat, just say I am recording in Thailand again, so if there's any background noise, apologies. Also, I'm a bit under the weather, as you can probably hear from my voice, but we continue, we soldier on. So this week, we're going deep into one of the most baffling disappearances in aviation history, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Highly regarded as the greatest mystery in aviation history and remains the single deadliest case of an aircraft disappearance ever. You've probably seen the Netflix documentary that came out a couple of years ago, but I'm here to give this story some fresh perspective, give you the latest updates on MH370, and hopefully shine some new light on this tragic mystery. No matter how you look at this, it's undeniable that there's more to this story than meets the eye. So, was it an aviation disaster, or are we dealing with something far more sinister here? As always, get yourselves comfy, and let's find out together. Alright, before we go full conspiracy mode, let's quickly remind ourselves of the official story and details regarding the flight. So March 8th, 2014, the international passenger flight Malaysia Airlines 370, a Boeing 777-200ER, took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia at 12:41 a.m. local time. It was the red-eye flight, and it was en route to Beijing, China. A flight that should take around 6.5 hours. With 227 passengers and 12 crew members, making a total of 239 people on board, the plane reached its cruising altitude of 10,700 meters, or 35,000 feet, at 1:01 a.m. The crew last communicated with air traffic control ATC around 38 minutes after takeoff, when the flight was over the South China Sea. The Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting Systems, ACARS, which transmitted data about the aircraft's performance, sent its last transmission at 1:07 a.m. and was subsequently switched off. The last voice communication from the crew occurred at 1:19 a.m. with the transmission, "Good night, Malaysia 370. So eerie. So when you now know what happened to the plane, it's so eerie that that's the final message that came from them. And at 1:21 a.m., just 2 minutes later, the plane's transponder, which communicated with air traffic control, was also switched off just as the plane was about to enter Vietnamese airspace over the South China Sea. At 1:30 a.m., Malaysian military and civilian radar began tracking the plane as it turned sharply and then flew southwest back over the Malay Peninsula and then northwest over the Strait of Malacca. So we're talking that this plane is making some pretty erratic flight path changes at this point, and it's going seriously off course, but it's still in the air and giving signs that whoever or whatever caused this diversion wished to avoid detection and was well versed in international air traffic control procedures. At 2:22 a.m., Malaysian military radar lost contact with the plane over the Andaman Sea. However, it did not stay dark. Less than a minute later, MH370's satellite communication system was switched back on. An Inmarsat satellite in geostationary orbit over the Indian Ocean then received hourly signals from Flight 370 and last detected the plane just under 6 hours later at 8:11 a.m. So why the satellite communication systems was turned back on is completely unknown to this day. The system was never used, no outgoing telephone calls were placed, no text messages were sent, and 2 inbound calls from the Malaysia Airlines to the plane went unanswered. Though the signals contain no messages per se, the frequency at which they were sent and the time it took to send and receive them have been used to determine the plane's probable direction of travel. So I know that was a lot of information and a lot of times to digest, and I just threw it all at you. And I know it can be a little bit confusing. So let me just give you a quick snapshot of the timeline just to kind of sum it up, just so you're on board with what happened. Okay. So Malaysia Flight 370 takes off at 12:41 a.m. 20 minutes later, at 1:01 a.m., the plane reaches 35,000 feet. 26 minutes into the flight at 1:07 a.m., the plane's ACRS system is switched off. 38 minutes into the flight at 1:19 a.m., the last voice communication is received. 40 minutes into the flight at 1:21 a.m., the plane's transponder is switched off. 49 minutes into the flight at 1:30 a.m., Malaysian military starts tracking the plane. 1 hour 41 minutes into the flight at 2:22 a.m., Malaysian military lose contact with the plane. The plane then sends a signal every hour for the next 6 hours, with the last known detection of MH370 being 7 hours 30 minutes after takeoff. So I hope that gives you a pretty good picture of the reported timeline, and if you need some better understanding of the locations or geographies, just give the Indian Ocean a Google to better understand where this plane vanished and how big this space is. It's basically the giant sea that connects East Africa to India to West Australia. It's the third largest ocean in the world, so it's a pretty big space. So from the timeline I gave, I think you can understand that there is the mystery here, right? So the plane's en route to China from Malaysia. It completely goes off course, vanishes from radar just under an hour into the flight. No distress signal, no signs of trouble, just gone, disappeared. So what really happened?
But Ash, why did they just go looking for it and find it?
Well, authorities did quickly focus their search efforts on the South Indian Ocean, where they claimed to find some debris from the plane washed up on various islands. But the main wreckage is still nowhere to be found. And if the plane did go down in this area, we're talking, as I mentioned, we're talking about the third largest ocean on the planet. So, yeah, finding the plane's remains as well. It's not exactly a walk in the park, let's say. And that, guys, is the official story. That's where we're at. That's the official story. But here's the problem with it. There are a lot of holes. There's a lot of plot holes in this. And when there's holes in the official story, you know what that means. We're going to plug those holes with some juicy conspiracy theories. So let's take a look at some of the most popular ones. Alright, let's start with the big one. What if this whole thing wasn't an accident at all? What if Flight 370 was intentionally taken off course? Some people believe the plane was hijacked. Now, this isn't your standard bad guy takes control hijacking. This one's way more sneaky, way more James Bond villain. Picture it. The plane is cruising along and suddenly the crew gets a surprise visit from some very covert, very mysterious figures. Maybe they're from a government agency, or maybe they're a faction with their own agenda. The plane takes a detour and bam, off the grid. Who would have been able to pull that off? So, United States and Malaysian officials reviewed the backgrounds of every passenger named on the manifest. One passenger, who worked as a flight engineer for a Swiss jet charter company, was briefly under suspicion as a potential hijacker because he was thought to have the relevant aviation skills. Then, 2 men were found to have boarded Flight 370 with stolen passports, which raised suspicion in the immediate aftermath of his disappearance. The passports, one Austrian and one Italian, had been reported stolen in Thailand within the preceding 2 years. The 2 passengers were later identified as Iranian men, one aged 19 and the other 29, who had entered Malaysia on 28th of February using valid Iranian passports. They were believed to be asylum seekers, and the Secretary General of Interpol later stated that the organization was inclined to conclude that it was not a terror incident and they were not responsible. So the Swiss guys not responsible, the Iranian guys are not responsible. So who is? Well, journalist Jeff Wise has a theory involving Russian hijackers. He argues they manipulated the plane's systems and flew it to Kazakhstan. This theory hinges on the plane's erratic course changes, which Wise claims were too precise to be accidents. He also claims that the fact that the SDU, that signal that came back on and was sending pings every hour, was turned back on and provides a window into the circumstances of the hijack. For one thing, since the SDU integrates information from other parts of the plane's computer system, we're able to know that the plane's electronics were substantially functional and perhaps entirely functional, right? Second, the fact that the perpetrator or perpetrators knew how to access this compartment and how to toggle the correct switches suggests a high degree of technical sophistication. Further evidence of his claim of the hijacker's sophistication comes from the fact that they also managed to turn off the ACARS reporting system. So this can be done from the cockpit, but only by those with specialized knowledge. Emirates Airlines CEO Tim Clark told Der Spiegel recently, "Disabling it is no simple thing, and our pilots are not trained to do so." Right. So, that's a bit suspicious. Like, pilots don't really know how to do this, and the system was turned off. That does indicate something happened, or someone intervened that had exclusive knowledge about airplanes and how to do this. So that's really interesting. And you know what's really bizarre? I don't know if you've seen the Netflix documentary. It does go into this. Episode 2, I think. Because for all of its importance, the 777's EE bay, right, is surprisingly accessible to members of the flying public. To me and you, we can access it if we have the time and energy. And the reason to. I mean, I don't think many people have the reason to, but so the hatch generally is left unlocked and it's set in the floor at the front of the first class cabin, right? So it's near the galley, near the toilets. Like anyone can access if you know how to. You can actually watch a video of a pilot accessing the EE bay in flight. You can just Google that. So, yeah. That information's out there. So once inside, an intruder would have immediate physical access to the computer systems that control communication, navigation, and flight surfaces. A device called a portable maintenance access terminal allows ground crew to plug into the computer system to test systems and upload software to the plane. So Matt Williman, an Australian former 777 pilot, commented, "Information is publicly available online describing the cockpit defenses and systems located within this compartment. This hatch may therefore be accessible in flight to a knowledgeable and malevolent passenger with catastrophic consequences." Damn. How do they make it so accessible? That's kind of like, before 9/11, you were able to basically on all planes go to the front and you could see the door where the pilot goes into. Like now only in kind of budget airlines do you see that door, but usually the pilot now enters through its own door at the front of the cockpit, So yeah, this is a recipe for disaster, having such a important access system available to Joe Bloggs, the public. So, and yeah, as I mentioned, if you've ever seen that Netflix documentary, they actually do give you like a reconstruction simulation of someone accessing this compartment, and it's pretty wild what you can do down there. So
wait, so anyone can access this and fly the goddamn plane?
Well, no, I don't think anyone can fly the plane from there or access it like anyone like me and you. But I think if you have extreme knowledge to be able to pull it off, and also a super fucking sneaky way to get down there without anyone noticing. I mean, there's always someone coming out the loo or a queue waiting to get in. Don't know how you'd sneak past them, but if this was a sophisticated hijacking, it's definitely in the realms of possibility that someone got down there and fucked with the systems. 100%. Was it the Russians? I don't know. Was it Iranians? I don't know. But hopefully, one day, we find out. So if it wasn't a hijacking, what was it? So next up we have the suicide theory. So it's been reported that the signals had likely been switched off from inside the aircraft, suggesting suicide by one of the crew or the pilot. However, nothing obviously suspicious was found in the behavior of the captain, the first officer, or the cabin crew immediately prior to the flight. I think that's really important to note. But in 2016, New York Magazine reported that the pilot on his home flight simulator had flown over the southern Indian Ocean less than a month before the plane vanished. A simulated flight that closely matched the missing aircraft's final path. Yeah. So they wrote, New York has obtained a confidential document from the Malaysian police investigation into the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 that shows that the pilot's captain, Zahari Ahmed Shah, conducted a simulated flight deep into the remote southern Indian Ocean less than a month before the plane vanished under uncannily similar circumstances. Well, damn, case closed. But actually, the revelation which Malaysia withheld from a lengthy public report on the investigation is the strongest evidence yet that Zahari made off with the plane in a premeditated act of mass murder-suicide or for financial gain. However, according to the preliminary report released by Malaysia in March 2015, there was no evidence of recent or imminent significant financial transactions or any evidence to support that the pilot would take his own life and commit mass suicide. But then, of course, it takes another turn. In 2020, former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott stated in a Sky News documentary, "My very clear understanding from the very top levels of Malaysian government is that from very, very early on, they thought it was mass suicide by the pilot." So now we're in the realms of I don't know how credible that is because it seems pretty much based completely on speculation and the back and forth of different evidence. Screams a cover up to me for sure, kind of, Malaysia telling me this and then Malaysia saying that and then the government's doing that and then we're reporting that over there. Like, it's classic misdirection and I just don't know how credible that is. And if there was no evidence pointing to the fact that this pilot was considering any type of action or usually there's a note or something left behind or some kind of indication. With absolutely none of that, it's kind of like, it seems a bit like a scapegoat kind of, let's just put it on the pilot. I'm not sure about that one. And also I think it's a bit unfair just to put it onto him without any solid evidence because, his family also lost him. And if he wasn't involved and his name has been tarnished, then, it's not very fair. So I think until any kind of concrete evidence comes forward, I think that's still very much a theory and it should be classed as a theory. But let's move on to another theory that centers around Diego Garcia. So Diego Garcia is a highly classified US military base in the Indian Ocean. Some claim the plane was either shot down or diverted there. Eyewitnesses in the Maldives reported seeing a low-flying jet matching MH370's description. Theorists have suggested that MH370 was either captured by US Navy SEALs and then flown to the US naval base on the atoll of Diego Garcia in the British Indian Ocean Territory to bring justice to Chinese computer scientists who were on board believed to be responsible for hacking attacks on US Department of Defense computer servers. Or that the plane landed at the base directly after being instructed to travel there. So now we've got suspicious people on the plane, and then it goes missing. Suspicious. Underpinning the Diego Garcia theory were several elements, one of which was the co-pilot's mobile phone signal and the plane's westward turn, both of which were consistent with a flight path towards the island. And as we mentioned in the previous theory, the captain had trained in landing on an Indian Ocean island with a short runway using a flight simulator on his home computer. Several mass media sources reported that the captain had trained using his Avia simulator to land on 5 runways, each at least 1,000 meters, 0.62 miles long, in the Indian Ocean region, namely Diego Garcia and Malé International Airport. And then on top of that, you've got the Maldives News, Javiru, who reported on 18th of March 2014 that several residents of Kuda Huvadu, probably completely butchered that, Kuda Huvadu, let's just go with that, told Javiru on Tuesday night that they saw a low-flying jumbo jet at around 6:15 on March 8th. They said it was a white aircraft with red stripes across it, which is what the Malaysian air flights typically look like. Eyewitnesses from the Kuda Havudu concurred that the jet was traveling north to southeast towards the southern tip of the Maldives to Adu. They also noted the incredibly loud noises that the flight made when it flew over their island. An eyewitness claimed, "I've never seen a jet flying so low over this island before. We've seen seaplanes, but I'm sure this was not one of those. I could even make out the doors on the plane clearly." One other witness says, "It's not just me that's seen them. Several other residents have reported seeing the exact same thing. Some people got out of their houses to see what was causing the tremendous noise." Mohammed Zahim, the island councillor of Kuda Havudu, also said that the residents of the island had spoken to him about the incident and reported it. So, was the flight diverted to a US airbase? Could that be where it went and why we've never seen it again?
I don't know, Ash, but maybe we should trust the government.
Yep, I'll let you guys make up your own mind on that one. But let's move on to the next theory. So this theory claims radar picked up 3 unidentified flying objects near MH370 before it disappeared.
Oh no, not aliens again.
Yup. So, could these have been UFOs or perhaps advanced military drones? While skeptics argue the radar blips were errors or misreadings, true believers point to this as a proof of extraterrestrial intervention and even teleportation. There are 2 videos that were released shortly after the search for MH370 was called off, and they surfaced online from an unidentified source. So one shot in FLIR from a US military UAV and another one from a satellite. Both show alleged MH370 vanishing into a portal after being intercepted by 3 orb-like UFOs. And I don't know if you've seen the video, but you can definitely find it online. Just give it a Google, MH370 orbs or MH370 teleportation, something like that. You definitely find it online. But essentially the video shows some clouds over a blue ocean background, and then a plane banking steeply flies into view from the top left. And then about 15 seconds into the footage, a white orb-like object flies in and begins to loop around the plane. It's joined a few seconds later by 2 more. 3 orbs orbit the plane as it levels out, and then there's a sudden flash of light, and the plane and orbs vanish without a trace. It's a very good video, a very interesting video, and if that happened, where did it go? Like, it's all well and good saying it went into a portal and it teleported. To where? Like, where did it go? Naturally, both videos, of course, are highly extraordinary, so the vast majority of viewers have immediately said it's CGI, it's fake, this is bullshit. However, many UFO and CGI communities have come together to do a detailed analysis of the videos, showing that faking 2 videos showing the exact same incident and releasing them within such a short amount of time would have taken quite a bit of CGI effort back in 2014. So it's not like we're in 2024 where you can kind of just go to ChatGPT and say, make this video for me. It was 10 years ago. You know, how advanced was CGI then? In terms of like the average person being able to create that. I don't know. But I still want to know where, if it did go through a portal, where would it go? And also, if we do have that technology, why on earth am I sitting on a plane for 12 hours when I can just fly into a portal? Where is that technology? Like, come on now. I could skip all of that bad in-flight experience and just get straight to the beach.
I wish I could teleport out of your head.
Well, you can't. So we've covered 4 major theories surrounding MH370 so far. So we've got the Russian connection hijack theory. Then you've got pilot or crew suicide attempt. Then you've got the Diego Garcia US military base and the teleportation. So I'd like to just cover one more very briefly because I found this very interesting. So in March 2018, around the 4th anniversary of Flight 370's disappearance, an individual who is unnamed, you can't find traces of him, find anything about him online, received strange voicemails and texts with coordinates of a location in Indonesia somewhat close to where Flight 370 vanished. The voicemails were coded in the NATO phonetic alphabet, which alluded to an alien abduction. So then this was leaked into the media, and it generated significant attention. So the man who received the text and voicemails also claimed that someone had showed up and taken pictures of his house. Oh, the men in black are here. Let's hope he doesn't have clean energy in his house. But yeah, that's so wild. It's so wild. And the fact that that's out there as well, and is kind of in the media, and has been reported, it could just be a hoax. It could be a hoax for sure, and it could just be someone playing around and doing a sick joke, but that would be wild. Imagine. Again, raises the question of, like, if you received that voicemail, what would you do with it? What would you do? Would you take it to the local police? Would you keep it? Would you spread it online? But yeah, I just found that interesting. Kind of reminded me of, like, turning this case into like a Da Vinci Code. You know, there's like voicemails being left and clues, and go to this location and then go to that location. No, kind of like Indiana Jones in a sense. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting turn. I'd never heard of that one before. So yeah, the mystery phone message of 2018. Talking of Indiana Jones, by the way, I don't think we can discuss MH370 without covering Blaine Allen Gibson. So Gibson has been called the modern day Indiana Jones, though his temperament probably a lot closer to Sherlock Holmes. So he's a 50-something-year-old American lawyer turned debris hunter who has dedicated years of his life to finding MH370. He made headlines around the world after he found debris that was confirmed, in quotation marks, to be a piece from MH370. The official search for the missing plane spanned a distance of 46,000 square miles, but authorities from Malaysia, China, and Australia had no success in finding anything. The search was called off in January 2017. However, in 2016, Gibson told CNN that he was keen to keep searching. He quoted, "Until I or someone else finds the plane and the truth about what happened to it and the passengers, I'll keep going. The search must go on. It can only stop when the present search area has been exhausted. We have to solve this mystery." So his discoveries since have included a piece of the plane's horizontal stabilizer in Mozambique, suspected interior cabin fragments in Madagascar, a Rolls-Royce engine cowling with a partial logo. Per a report from the Times, Gibson is still looking for debris, and he lives out of a suitcase while traveling around Southeast Asia. He spoke to the publication from an undisclosed location in December 2022. So, Gibson has kept his whereabouts private since 2016 because of the level of death threats he's received once he started his search for the debris. So in his conversation with the Times, Gibson shared that he had found more debris that he believes is from MH370, and he's quoted saying, "Now I've got some more debris is starting to heat up again, and with the prospect of a new search that may find the plane and the truth, some people are getting pretty worried." Gibson has been hit by death threats and trolling for years, but he told the publication that he tries to not let himself get affected by it. He also quoted, "They just trash me and they try to bring down my credibility, and when all I've done is collect debris from a fisherman who had it sitting in his yard for 5 years and didn't know what it was." He added, "There are certain elements in Malaysia, mafia types, who seem to be very much against me and against the search and my efforts. I've been defamed, followed, and intimidated by them, but it didn't stop me. It just pushed me underground." So despite choosing to remain underground for his safety, Gibson did make an appearance in the Netflix documentary where he spoke about his discoveries. So yeah, literally the real life Indiana Jones, finding debris all over the world, trying to solve a mystery. However, Jeff Wise, the guy who theorizes about the Russia link, says, if the hijacking of MH370 was a Russian plot and the MH370 flew to Kazakhstan, then the pieces of debris collected in the West Indian Ocean must have been planted by the Russians in an effort to support the misleading Southern narrative. Blaine Allen Gibson had demonstrated an uncanny knack for locating and publicizing this debris. Was Gibson somehow connected to Russia? And Jeff actually interviewed Blaine for New York Magazine 20 years before, right? And during that interview, Blaine said, "When I was living and working in Russia, I was the second American to ever go to the epicenter of the Tunguska meteorite." He explained that, "I speak Russian fluently and I have access to Russian scientists. Drinking vodka with them, they tell me what they really thought." And to be fair, if you've ever studied Russian or tried to study Russian, I have, and let me tell you, Russia is not a language that one picks up on a whim. It is considered one of the most difficult languages for the native English speaker to learn. So, it's a bit suspicious, maybe. It's a bit suspicious. Maybe there is a link there. Maybe there is a link to Russia. Blaine Allen Gibson. Could it be? Could it just be a coincidence that he just is pretty good at Russian? And yeah, absolutely. But also, I don't know, maybe Jeff's onto something. I have no idea. I have no idea what to think. No idea to think about this guy. Because in one respect, he's probably doing a very good thing and trying to solve something that is surrounded by so much mystery. But then you've got this other idea that maybe he's coming across this stuff way too easily and it's just been planted. Like, I don't know. That's why we do this podcast, to open our minds. So let me know what you think. Do you think he's the real life Indiana Jones and doing it for personal interest? Or is he connected to Russia? And what do you also think about Jeff's claims that the plane was abducted by Russians taken to Kazakhstan? Like, do you think it has any credibility at all? If so, just let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. But talking about debris, there have been some other discoveries, okay? So there's a couple of notable ones. So the first is the Reunion Island in 2015. A piece of flaperon was found washed ashore on Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean, and this was the first confirmed piece of MH370 and matched Boeing 777 specifications. And then over 20 pieces of debris have been found across beaches in Madagascar, Mozambique, and South Africa. These include cabin interior pieces, wing parts, and a suspected engine cowling. My question is, why did it take over a year to find debris? Some could say, ocean currents and how big the ocean is, for sure. But I question, was there a delayed reporting for some unclear reasons? Because the Malaysian government have been a bit, not cooperative, bit cooperative, don't want to search, do want to search. Are they trying to just delay this report coming out that shows that something happened that maybe they were responsible for? I don't know, just a theory, and also many of the items that were recovered have been recovered by Blaine. So that does raise the question about why did authorities, after doing such a massive search, why did they not come across something, and yet a private individual succeeds again and again and again? It is a bit suspicious. I don't know. I just get a bad feeling about it. I'm not sure. But let's take a moment to talk about what is real. And let's talk about the victims, because 239 people did die or disappear that day. And it left a trail of heartbreak and suspicion for the relatives, with two words that have haunted them since: lost contact. So one father, Lee Er-yu, whose son Yanlin, who was one of 153 Chinese passengers on the flight, commented, "For years I've been asking, what do you mean by lost contact? It seems to me that if you lose contact with someone, you should be able to reconnect with them," which is quite sad. And then you got Miss Gonzalez, whose husband was on board, stated, "I just want the plane to be found. At least then I can let my husband rest in peace. Right now, I've not done anything for him, to give him a memorial. I can't because we don't have anything tangible from him. So, for the families of those on board, these have been 10 years of inescapable grief, battling to keep the search going to find out exactly what happened to MH370 and why. Why did this happen? The families say that they're often encouraged by new reports and then it's ripped away from them. And they've gone as far to even question the veracity of the Malaysian government statements about the demise of the aircraft. And they even organized a protest at the Malaysian embassy in Beijing with the goal of forcing the Malaysian government to reveal any withheld information about the flight's whereabouts. So, they are fighting back. The victims' families are pushing and pushing. They really want to know what happened. Just like the rest of us. We all want to know what happened. And if it is a cover-up, why is it being covered up? And what really happened? That's all we want to know. So hopefully, due to the recent developments, we might get some answers. So despite the largest search in aviation history, the plane has never been found. But there have been some very recent updates for MH370. So, as of December 20, 2024, so just about a month ago, Malaysia announced it has agreed to launch a new search for the plane that disappeared 10 years ago. Transport Minister Anthony Loke said Malaysia had agreed to a new search operation by maritime exploration firm Ocean Infinity, which also carried out an unsuccessful hunt in 2018. Loki said a new 5,800 square mile area of the southern Indian Ocean would be scoured, quoting, "The new search area proposed by Ocean Infinity is based on the latest information and data analysis conducted by experts and researchers." He said, "The proposal for a search operation by Ocean Infinity is a solid one and deserves to be considered." So, this new search will be on the same no find, no fee principle as Ocean Infinity's previous search, with the government only paying out to them if they find the aircraft. The contract is for 18 months and Malaysia will pay $70 million to the company if the plane is found. Loki also said the decision to agree to a fresh search reflects the Malaysian government's commitment to continuing the search operation and providing closure to the families of the victims. So at least they are giving it another go. And hopefully we get the answers we are looking for. I thought I'd just point out, though, that the original Australia-led search covered 120,000 square kilometres in the Indian Ocean, but found hardly any traces of the plane, with only some pieces of debris picked up. So when asked if he was confident if the plane will be found during this new search, Loki said, "At this point no one could provide guarantees. It has been over 10 years, and it would be unfair to expect a concrete commitment. However, under the terms and conditions, any discovery must be credible. It cannot just be a few fragments. There are specific criteria outlined in the contract." So let's hope that this turns up some new evidence and closure for the families. We hope that it doesn't just come back like the final report in the tragedy released in 2018, which pointed to failings by air traffic control and which did state that the course of the plane was changed manually. So kind of points to some pretty suspicious activity. With all 227 passengers and 12 crew on board presumed dead, the disappearance of Flight 370 was the deadliest incident involving a Boeing 777, the deadliest of 2014 and the deadliest in Malaysian Airlines history, until it was surpassed in all three regards by another Malaysian Air Flight 17, which was shot down by Russian-backed forces while flying over Ukraine just 4 months after MH370 went missing. It was shot down on 17th of July 2014. That one has been confirmed. So what do you think? Was MH370 a tragic accident, an elaborate hijacking, or something we can't even comprehend? Let me know your thoughts in the comments or on our socials at Conspiracy. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok. You can also email me, conspiracy@gmail.com. I'm always keen to hear what you guys think about this episode or any conspiracies that you'd like me to cover. I'd like to just give a shout out to everyone who did message me in my DMs and my emails requesting MH370. So, I do take your feedback on board and I do listen to you guys. And so if you have any ideas about a future episode, drop it into my DMs, send me an email, I'm happy to cover them in the future. That's it for today's episode of Conspiracy, where weird is the new normal. Join us next Wednesday for a brand new conspiracy theory, and if you like today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your conspiracy-loving mates. And remember, the truth is out there.